Halloween 2018 was not only wildly successful, it's actually the highest grossing slasher film of all time. Not adjusting for inflation, of course, but the movie did great things for the Halloween franchise. But does that make it a great movie? Let's talk about it. Actually, first thing, let me get a sip of this hot chocolate. I'm gonna make some serious sugar and energy to get through this one. So, when I first heard about Halloween 2018, probably back in 2016 or 2017, when I first heard the news about a new Halloween movie, I was super excited. The last thing we know, of course, was the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, which I'm not the biggest fan of. So, we not only got the fact that Blumhouse was taking over the Halloween franchise, we also got the return of John Carpenter was in the news, which is amazing. I was excited. I mean, this is gonna be a new thing. I know because his Blumhouse is probably gonna get some kind of royal treatment. Blumhouse was doing quite well at the box office, and, they were doing very well, so it looked like a good move, a good direction for the Halloween franchise to take. Now, that said, I was down for anything. I was so starved for any kind of Halloween movie. If they would announce that it's the continued adventures of Busta Rhymes, Freddy versus Michael Myers, not Freddy Krueger, but Busta Rhymes Freddy, I'd have been on board. I'd been like, man, you're doing a sequel to Resurrection. I don't know how this is gonna work. This is probably gonna be trash, but I would have been there day one in the theater. I was that starved for a Halloween film. And then we got the news that Jamie Lee Curtis was returning, which, wow, I said to myself, self, it sounds like we're doing another timeline. All the timelines already in the Halloween series. We're gonna do another timeline. She died in Resurrection. How's she coming back? And it was announced that they were going to do a reboot of the franchise, which first, initially, I don't know if it was so clear that they were only following up part one. I thought initially everybody was thinking, okay, they're following up part one and two. Eventually, the news came out that they're only following up part one. Now, this is pretty insane, wiping out all the sequels. Halloween H2O famously wiped out the Thorn series, which for some, that was a good move, but this was taking out the entire series, including Halloween 2, which I just reviewed last week and is probably the favorite sequel for many Halloween fans. So this was an interesting direction, bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis. That was gonna ensure bonanza's box office, I would say, because Jamie Lee Curtis has always been a pretty big star. So I can see why they did it, and I was curious to see the creative direction they took here. How do you follow up the initial Halloween 40 years later? Let's talk about it. Well, the first thing that I noticed about this movie from the opening is that Michael Myers is a prisoner. They've retconned. It's not a retcon on the ending of part one, but they're telling us that Michael Myers was captured back in 1978. He did not disappear into the night. He did not get away. He was captured after the events of part one. What do I think about that? Well, I have to say I don't love it. It doesn't change part one for me in any way, but there's something badass about Michael Myers taking the six shots, getting off the lawn, disappearing into the night. The montage of the different areas of Haddonfield that Michael Myers could be, we just don't know. To think that down the block he's getting captured by the police, I don't know. I don't love it. I'll be honest. Even though H2O, gives us the weird explanation of Michael Myers has been gone for 20 years and they have some trouble explaining why he's been gone. It would have been even a probably a bigger puzzle to solve as to why Michael would have been gone for 40 years. I still don't like the idea of Michael Myers just being in prison for 40 years. I don't know. I don't like that. Thank goodness they didn't go with their original thing. The original thing was they were really gonna retcon the end of part one. Apparently, they were gonna actually kill off Dr. Loomis at the end of part one, but John Carpenter, thank goodness, actually talked them out of it. That would have actually annoyed me to no end. Even though this is a whatever timeline, you don't mess with the original, don't change anything about the original. So Michael Myers has been locked up for 40 years. And at the beginning of this movie, we have some podcasters that are coming to see him to try to get him to talk. They're going to try to provoke him by showing him the mask. Even though Michael Myers never even looks at the mask, Aaron, our podcaster, is like saying, "You can feel it. You can feel it. Can't you, Michael? Speak." Okay. I was in the movie theater opening night watching the movie. The opening for me was flat right there. I didn't really get a lot of enthusiasm or excitement out of this opening. I thought it was a flat opening. I didn't understand why they would let podcasters come into mental hospital and incite all the people there. Like everybody starts jumping around, making a lot of noise. It's like, why would they allow someone to come in and try to provoke, an inmate? It makes no sense to me. I know that we'll find out that Sartain is like off his rocker, but um and then why are the podcasters even here? The podcasters, apparently they traveled a long way from their accents. We're assuming they came from the UK. Um, they're giving Laurie Strode $3,000 for an interview. I mean, this is a pretty big deal, but would they really care that much about Michael Myers? I mean, Michael Myers in this timeline is not the infamous, notorious serial killer that we all know and love. This is the Michael Myers strictly going from the events of part one. He killed 5 people 40 years ago. I don't know. Is this really like that serious for the podcasters to be doing this entire thing? I don't know. Maybe but either way, Laurie Strode, we catch up with 40 years later. She is sort of isolated in the woods at her own compound. She's doing the Sarah Connor thing where she has guns. She's all about self-defense. She describes herself as pretty much being a basket case. Um, okay, well, she was attacked 40 years ago, and I'm not in a position to tell anybody how to treat their trauma. This is the characterization they're going with. I do prefer Laurie in H2O. I feel like that was a better characterization of someone 20 years later. This being 40 years later, I can't help but think, Laurie, why didn't you leave Haddonfield? Why are you still in the area even? I mean, why would your family, knowing the events you went through, why would they settle down in Haddonfield? None of that makes sense to me. This whole entire Strode family would have moved somewhere else. That's why H2O, she doesn't have to fake her death and like, get a new identity. But she damn sure has to move out of the area. I don't know. So as it turns out, the podcasters really messed up by provoking Michael because this happens to be on the eve of him being transported. And we know that anytime any kind of transport's going on with Michael, some serious shit's about to go down. And Michael escapes from his transport, escapes from the bus. We'll find out why he escaped later on. But now he's tracking the podcasters. I don't know if he's tracking them. They all end up at the graveyard where they're talking to the gravedigger caretaker person about Judith Myers. They're at the Judith Myers grave, which Michael Myers is hanging in the background and watching them from afar, which is pretty interesting. Michael Myers, when he escaped in 1978, he did go to the graveyard to steal Judith Myers' gravestone. So this is a great actual sort of callback to that. But did he follow the podcasters there, or was he already there and happened to run into them? That's what's sort of unclear because after Michael escaped, it's a hell of a coincidence for him to run to the podcasters again. If he didn't run to them here at the cemetery, what I guess they just get off scotch-free because I guess this turns the thing when he sees the podcaster, he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. That dude has my mask, and he tried to provoke me back at the place. Let me kill him, get my mask back." He's gonna do just that. He ends up following them to a sort of gas station where they're getting gas, and while they're getting gas, Michael Myers is busy killing the whole gas station staff, and if you watch the movie, it's like, Aaron and his girl there, the 2 podcasters, they could have filled up their gas and just went about on their way, and again, they probably would never see Michael again. It's just pure coincidence that she has to go use the bathroom, and Aaron then goes to investigate things, but Michael's busy killing the staff, and, like, he's not really, like, paying attention to them so much at this point, so I don't know what the play here was. Um, okay, Michael in these early scenes, let's talk about it. James Jude Courtney is an amazing Michael Myers. When he puts the mask on, he's everything you want in Michael. His presentation, his walk, his demeanor, his characteristics. You couldn't ask for a better Michael. You couldn't ask for a better Michael Myers in today's age. But I know this is gonna sound like I'm piling on the pet peeves. Just for me personally, I don't like seeing so much of Michael with his mask off. I know that he's just a human being, so hey, what's the big deal? I don't know. I prefer Michael to very rarely be seen without his mask. I like him with the mask on. I feel like part of his boogeyman persona is with the mask. So these opening scenes, the bathroom scene, it's a lot of Michael without the mask, and I just would have preferred if they kind of kept that in the shadows. We get a couple shots where you clearly see his face. I don't know. Again, it's like the opening of him being locked away, him being caught and locked up for 40 years. Now seeing his face too much. I feel like a little bit of the mystique of Michael is killed off here in the first 20 minutes or so. That said, we do get a solid bathroom scene, really doing a callback to Halloween H2O. And it's funny, we're erasing the sequels, but we're using bits and pieces from the sequels, what we like and what we don't like. I talked about this in another video, but Aaron here in the bathroom, of course, gets his head bashed in against the wall, then against the bathroom stall. We see him bleeding out. If he isn't dead, he's presumed dead. We never see his body rolled around, but in hindsight, why not leave Aaron alive? Aaron had this interaction with Laurie early in the movie where Laurie's like, "You don't believe in the boogeyman?" And Aaron's like, "No, I believe in Michael Myers, the person." This was a moment to make Aaron believe. He came face to face with Michael, got his head bashed in, put him in a coma, leave him alive because if he comes back, you have a new organic Dr. Loomis. You have somebody who now believes in the pure evil of Michael the way that Loomis did. He also has a revenge motive because his podcaster girlfriend was killed by Michael. And I think the actor who plays Aaron seemed like a pretty good actor. Like, I would have liked him. I would have preferred him in the rest of the trilogy as helping Laurie versus Sheriff Hawkins. Um, I don't know. I think it was a missed opportunity, and it's almost like they hinted at that because they don't show him actually dead. You don't see his body rolled away, so it's kind of like they were leaving the option open for that. But I feel like that'd have been a very nice connective tissue for the rest of the sequels in this trilogy. I know in part 1, though, they weren't necessarily planning a trilogy, but they probably had in the back of their head that this movie made bonsai box office that they were gonna go at least with 1 sequel. Okay, so what else is going on in this movie? We meet Laurie's family. She has a daughter, a granddaughter, a stepson who apparently is there for comic relief, talking about he got peanut butter on his penis. Just a very awkward moment in the theater. Nobody laughed at that scene, but I know they were going for comic relief. Okay. Um, Allison, the granddaughter, walking with her friends. Let's get a bit of dialogue from Allison's friend.
All things considered, there's a lot worse stuff that's happening today. And, like, I mean, what, a couple people getting killed by one guy with a knife is not that big of a deal.
Yes, now that kid is right, but my question is, why are you putting this in the movie? Why is this in the script? Why are you arguing against your own plot? Like, he's making a point that's arguing against how Laurie's handling her trauma. Like, why is this in the movie? I understand, like, just because you know the audience is gonna like talk about this doesn't mean that you have to try to put it in the movie too. It just silly. Leave that part out. And also the fun in joke of like, oh, was that her brother? Oh no, that was just a rumor. Again, just why call attention to that? Just leave it out. It feels like a little bit too much going on here with the script. Okay, we have one guy in this movie who I guess is also either a sheriff or lieutenant, something who throughout the trilogy ends up being absolutely a useless character, but particularly useless in this first movie. Let's get his thoughts on Michael Myers escaping. Let's see what he wants to do about it.
But hey, what are we gonna do? Cancel Halloween?
Yes, idiot, cancel Halloween. What are you doing? Michael Myers is on the loose. He killed 4 people back in 1978. Where the hell is Dr. Loomis when you need him? I just don't understand why the script is working against itself in some of these scenes. Like, what is the purpose of that line? Just you're making the story seem illogical as it goes. But okay, that's one of the more useless characters. Let's move on from that. Let's talk about Dr. Sartain. Now, it's revealed at a certain point that Dr. Sartain, and the big twist, is the reason that Michael Myers escaped. He wants to see him out in the field, in the wild. This is a twist that nobody in the movie theater responded to, and every time I watch it, it gets dumber and dumber. The problem is Dr. Satane is he's a self-admitted student of Dr. Loomis. How would a student of Dr. Loomis go this far off the rails? He's been around Loomis. He's seen the Michael Myers files. This makes no sense. Sartain allows Michael to escape. He puts on Michael's mask. He gets close to Michael in a way that he's actually not scared of Michael. He thinks Michael is gonna speak to him, gonna entertain him with some thoughts after he hasn't spoken for 40 years. He's gonna give Sartain the benefit of hearing him speak. No, of course, Michael, as soon as he gets a chance, beats the hell out of Sartain and stomps his face in. And man, not saying he deserved it, but I understand. I don't know what the reasoning was this other than them needing a reason for Michael to end up at Laurie's compound. Um, we'll get back to that though. Let's talk about the actual escape because I feel like a more interesting approach. Now, this is just my idea, right? I'm not here to question what they did, but more interesting approach might have been to have Laurie herself be somehow responsible for Michael escaping. Maybe she's there with the gun. She follows the bus, somehow causes some accident. Now she knows Michael's escaped, but she also feels the guilt and responsibility of Michael having escaped. I mean, man, that'd have been a very interesting thing for sure, but that's not the route they went. Okay. Let's talk about Michael in Haddonfield. He's gotten his mask back. No more podcasters. Now we get Michael on the loose. My favorite scene in the movie is Michael, that first thing of him going into the one house, killing the old lady, to the next house, killing the woman. Amazing. And it felt like one shot, even though it wasn't actually one shot, it felt like one long tracking shot. Is that the Michael from part one? Well, you could say Michael from part two does kill Alice, that girl at the beginning. Very similar. Although Michael didn't really bother Miss Elrod. In this movie, he basically stabs the shit out of the version of Miss Elrod, to be the old lady here. Um, Michael's been locked up for 40 years, so maybe he does have some pent up, pissed off frustration that makes him do this. But I don't necessarily associate the Michael from the first movie as a full blown killing everything in sight person. In part one, he runs into different people. He doesn't kill everybody. He he's in the shadows. He's stalking people. He's taking time to enjoy the kills. This Michael didn't have any of that. This Michael is a pure killing machine. I don't know if they got the essence of Michael right here. I don't know if they were trying to have the cake and eat it too in a way of just having Michael from the sequels. Now in the sequels, no question, Michael becomes a Jason-like killer in some of these movies. But strictly going by the first movie, it's interesting that Michael is this aggressive, really going balls to the wall on the kills here. Okay, what about Allison's friend who is babysitting Julian? Vicky. I like Vicky. I've heard a lot of people say that Vicky was a fantastic character, should have got more screen time. Probably one of the only impactful deaths in this movie that you actually feel bad. You feel for the character. You felt like, she was a likable character. The way she handled Julian, she to be a stand-up babysitter for sure. It's a pretty damn big coincidence that that Michael ends up in her closet. Allison's best friend and Michael is here in her closet. Well, in the closet of her babysitting someone. It makes perfect sense that Michael stumbled upon a babysitter and took interest there, but what was Michael's plan here? Because Michael's just chilling in the closet. Julian notices Michael, goes down and gets Vicky. Vicky comes up, but how long was Michael to stand in that closet? All night? Like Michael, you got houses to go, people to do, things to do. Like, how long were you about to be in that closet? I don't know. Okay, the actual death scene. We have Vicky fall on the ground and get stabbed. Kind of an off-screen kill. My only problem with this whole scene, I know in the theater I got laughs and people love it, but I do not like Julian running up the stairs and saying, "Oh shit," and running back down the stairs. This was misplaced comedy, just like Peanut Butter on the Penis. And this movie does it a lot, in my opinion. It doesn't balance comedy and horror well. If you're gonna have comedy in your horror movie, don't have comedy at the exact moment when the audience is supposed to be terrified. At that moment when Vicky is in trouble, character we care about, she's trying to go away from Michael, Julian be like, "Oh shit," and run down the stairs. It's funny, but it's not the reaction you wanna get from your audience at that time. You want them to actually be scared and be taking Michael serious as a threat. Instead, Julian steals the whole damn scene. You come away from the scene really just thinking about how funny and great that kid was. But in general, I do like the death scenes in this movie. Allison's friend getting killed on the fence, the lights going on, lights going off, Michael appearing. That was very well done. The death scenes are pretty damn good in this movie. The thing with Allison finding her friend on the fence, Michael shows up next to the fence. This amazing score kicks in. First of all, the score in this movie is beautiful. John Carpenter did a great job with his son on that. And then Allison runs, and I thought we were about to get an epic chase scene, but Michael doesn't seem to follow her. The fact this movie has no real chase scenes, and I think it's lacking big time because Halloween and Halloween 2, the original OG and the 1981 version, both have epic chase scenes, which this does not. I understand why Michael wasn't chasing after Allison. Him chasing her down the street would have been fantastic. In fact, why do we need the Sartain twist when you could have just had Michael chase Allison through the woods all the way to Lori's compound? Now he has a genuine reason to meet up with Lori because he had made Allison his target. In fact, let's go back to early in the day. Let's have Michael stalking Allison throughout the day, having no idea that it's Lori's granddaughter. Just happens to be that by coincidence, he's the one that's caught Michael's eye the way that Lori did in 1978. Have that, then it makes perfect sense. He follows her to the compound, and we have this whole thing. But we have this completely sort of manufactured, doesn't really feel it feels like a lot going on for Michael to get to the compound at the end. We have these silly cops who are doing the misplaced comedy thing. Um, Lori's stepson, who is her daughter's husband, this guy gets killed and like he's really never mentioned again in the movie. And I understand that the movie was about 3 generations of Strode women going up against Michael. But I would have thought Alice at a certain point would have said, "Where's dad?" Like, I was kinda, like, taken back by at no point during the entire ending does Allison ever ask, like, "Hey, where's dad at?" Um, it wasn't a stepfather. It was that was actually her father, and it was her husband. Um, he never gets mentioned. Like, I don't understand. Like, I would think that the biggest deal of that night ultimately was that guy dying. And it's just we don't get to see anybody's reaction to it. We also don't get to see Allison's reaction to Vicky's death. Her best friend died. We don't get the reaction there. Getting reactions to those deaths makes those deaths more impactful, more meaningful. Like, it's just something you should have there to show the weight of what's happened to these characters, the amount of trauma the characters have gone through as they see their close ones die. I mean, that's horror movie 101, but that was sort of missing here. The overall ending is amazing. I love everything at the compound. I love how booby trapped it is. I love that the tables get turned in certain things, like Laura going off the top of the balcony and then her disappearing. That was a great callback. Michael falling into the what would be a fire trap. Fantastic. Of course, they don't show Michael burning, which was the first hint that this was not a true ending. Um, it seems off that Lori would like make a trap where Michael could get out of it and basically not burn. But as we find out in the next one, Michael does escape. But it's a pretty solid ending. And again, they damn near do the Jamie Lloyd thing at the end here with Allison showing her with a knife in their hand at the very end. I like the ending a lot. I actually wish that this would have been the ending of everything, basically. I don't think we needed Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends. I think this should have been a one and done. Clearly, what we saw in the remaining installments of trilogy shows there was really no plan for the future 2 sequels, or maybe not even a plan to do 2 more sequels. Maybe that came later, but I don't know. I think this would have been a solid end there. And one of the examples of maybe there not being a plan for the trilogy is the fact that they have Sheriff Hawkins alive in part 2. He clearly got ran over here, not only got stabbed in the throat and the neck by Sartain, but then Sartain runs over his body. How is he alive in part 2? I don't know, but either way, it may sound like I've been hard on the movie. The bottom line is I find it to be overrated, but then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends for me makes it look a lot better. In hindsight, it's by far the best movie in the new trilogy. And no, I don't think it deserves to be the highest grossing slasher of all time. I can name 10 recent slashers that were better than Halloween 2018. However, I think it's a respectable sequel. It's not bomb in the barrel. It's definitely not Halloween Resurrection or Halloween Ends. I think it's pretty good. It gets enough things right. It looks amazing. The cinematographer is beautiful. David Gordon Green knows where to put the camera. He knows how to film a scene. Not a lot of scares, not a lot of tense moments, not a lot of suspense. No chase scenes, no Michael stalking. Michael's very rarely in this movie ever in the background stalking. That's like a Halloween staple. We really don't get that here. So as a Halloween fan, I can see where Halloween purists would be disappointed. But it's a decent, fun slasher film. But ultimately, in terms of the title of this video, I do side with the idea that it is overrated. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Halloween 2018. I think the better timeline is Halloween, Halloween 2, and H2O. If you have thoughts on Halloween 2018, let me know in the comments. If you're watching this video and you enjoyed, please subscribe if you haven't. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, which is apparently a pretty big deal for smaller YouTube channels for sure.